Okay, so I want to talk to you about one of my favorite books, and that's this one, The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. Um, I've always called it The Portrait of Dorian Gray. That's how I first heard it, and I still kind of call it that because I think it's a better title anyway, but it doesn't matter. This is one of my favorite books. And when this first came out, the society that read it hated it. They called it vile, sinful, immoral. But the interesting thing is that Oscar Wilde challenged ideas, made people uncomfortable. But this book is steeped with a deep dive into the human condition that we look away from. And I love the light that it shines on us. And I want to share a piece of this with you that I really hooked me in. And so, for those of you who don't know, Dorian Gray is this teen who is just a beautiful creature. Olive skin, sharp angles, just really top notch. Everyone who looks at him is amazed at the thing that God created. And so he is friends with this painter, Harry. And Harry paints his portrait. And so check it out. He has a friend named Henry who Oscar Wilde uses as the vehicle to voice a lot of these challenging ideas. I mean, insightful as hell. Henry's, oh my God. So, he asks Harry to put up the painting. And so here's what he says. The painter says, Dorian Gray to me is simply a motive in art. You might see nothing in him, but I see everything in him. He is never more present in my work than when no image of him is there. He is a suggestion, as I have said, of a new manner. I find him in the curves of certain lines, in the loveliness and subtleties of certain colors. That is all. I mean, Harry really appreciates Dorian's beauty, and he paints this thing, and Henry is like, okay, so then why don't you exhibit it, his portrait? And here's his response, and I love this, because without intending it, I have put into it some expression of all this curious artistic idolatry, of which, of course, I have never cared to speak to him. He knows nothing about it. He shall never know anything about it. But the world might guess it. And I will not bare my soul to their shallow, prying eyes. My heart shall never be put under their microscope. There is too much of myself in this thing, Harry. Too much of myself. And so Harry, okay, I mean, there's Henry and Harry. I mix up the names sometimes. So Harry is the one that is issuing these challenging ideas throughout the story. But I found it so, like, it connected with me in the challenge that artists have, creators have, in putting out anything, because there's a piece of them in that thing. And for Henry, for the painter, all like he explores throughout this chapter how the keys to his very soul lie within this painting, and that is too revealing of him. That really stuck with me, and that's only on page 13. There's so much more content. Like, okay, for example, there's another thing that Harry talks about when it talks about influence, and he says that there is no such thing as a good influence. He's talking to Dorian Gray here, because there was worry that the painter had, that if Dorian hung out with his friend would influence him with all his ideas. And so they do end up going out, and he tells Dorian, yo, there's no such thing as a good influence, Mr. Gray. All influence is immoral. Immoral from the scientific point of view. Why? Because to influence a person is to give him one's own soul. He does not think his natural thoughts or burn with his natural passions. His virtues are not real to him. His sins, if there are such things as sins, are borrowed. He becomes an echo of someone else's music, an actor of a part that has not been written for him. The aim of life is self-development, to realize one's nature perfectly. That is what each of us are here for. People are afraid of themselves nowadays. They have forgotten the highest of all duties, the duty that one owes to oneself. Of course, he goes on, but the idea that any influence is wrong. You might think, you might paint it as positive or negative, but the greatest realization of oneself is without outside influence, and just focus on developing yourself as pure as you are. It's, I don't know. It really is. It's like, this book is amazing. And then there's another one other section that I thought was interesting as well. Of course, there's a lot of things interesting, but another one that talks about how talks about love and relationships and fidelity, faithfulness, and all that kind of stuff. And he says, there are many things we would throw away if we were not afraid that others might pick them up. That is an interesting thing to chew on, for anybody to chew on. So, if you want to talk more about Dorian Gray, I'm your man.